Hi, welcome back to the Launch Point Leader Podcast. My name's Lori.
I'm Beau.
And we are so excited to be back here this week with a twist. This week we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of a letter a listener has written in, we just want to kind of talk about a hot topic, something that has come up a lot recently with the clients we work with and in the businesses we lead. So this week we're really going to talk about the concept of self-awareness and how it can impact you as a leader, some of the misconceptions around it. You know, you hear it all the time. You need to be self-aware. You have to have self-awareness. It's everywhere. But really how you can implement that and taking that concept and saying, well, where do I start? We're going to talk about some of that today.
Yeah.
So I'll kick it right over to Beau.
We are. And I think this is, to me, one of the greatest either opportunities that we have as leaders, or it could be our biggest liability, our greatest strength or biggest liability. And for most of us, it is an opportunity. I think today, from what I see and the people I work with, this isn't true for everyone, but for most, there is a keen awareness around believing that we should have more, that we should be at a different level, or that we deserve to get to X because we have done Y. There's not often a time, or there's not a great awareness around exactly what we want. Sometimes it is that raise, that position, that whatever, but oftentimes I'm finding more recently is I just know I want more, but I don't know what the more is. So like I'm aware of what I feel, but I've not spent the time to think about and contextualize what it is that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a part of self-awareness like that. Like we're highly aware of what we think we deserve and what we want, some cases, but we're not self-aware. And I actually think we're starting with my generation. I don't think we're self-aware enough to realize how our actions and behaviors influence our opportunities to get that thing that we so deeply desire. Age, I tell my kids this all the time, age doesn't equal maturity. And age or length of service does not get you more self-awareness. It comes through work and understanding what it's like to be on the other side of me. Oftentimes I see that people want more pay without like paying the price to get it, or that they want to move to another opportunity without currently fulfilling their opportunity that they've said they wanted, without doing it with excellence. And so this isn't one of those that is like this generation. No, I'm not saying that. So don't click off and move on. What I'm saying is that if we as leaders could grasp this idea of self-awareness, literally being aware of what our actions, our words, and our behaviors and our results are saying about us, not so much what we are thinking about others, but if we just focus on us, your opportunities, you'd be amazed to see how many great opportunities would come your way, because very few people actually consider what their impact on the organization or on other people actually is. They think more about how do I get to where I want to go. And I would challenge you to say you get to where you want to go by being a very self-aware leader, not necessarily a critical leader of yourself, but a very aware leader that says, these actions, these behaviors, like this is how others see me. And I can either decide they're wrong and I'm offended, or I can say, this is how others see me. What do I need to do differently? What do I need to change? What are those behaviors that I can really dig into? And I think we also say we want to be developed oftentimes. And we really don't. We really don't. We just want we want a different pay or a different day to day is what I find a lot. So I think we confuse development with, we just want a different role. And that's not wrong, but just be self-aware enough to realize you're not asking to be developed. You're asking for a role so that you don't have to continue to do the work that you're doing today because maybe you're tired of it or you think you should be somewhere else. And that last part might be a little bit more of a rant, but the self-awareness piece of that goes, where do I want to be? I want to encourage our listeners to go, where do I want to be? How am I currently doing in my role that I hold today? What is the feedback that I'm receiving or seeking out about my behaviors and actions and how I'm coming across? And then what's my plan to work on me so that when that next role becomes available or that next opportunity becomes available, I'm a slam dunk choice. People can't wait to put me in that role because of how great I've done in my current position and how self-aware I am as a leader.
That's really good. I kept thinking about as you were talking, the idea we talk about a lot, how great leaders are smart, hungry, humble, right?
Yep.
And hunger is a huge part of that. It's not great to be complacent and staying in the same spot forever. So I know you obviously weren't saying this, but it's not bad to want more and to want to work to get there. But I think it's really interesting what you were kind of talking about is sometimes confusing development with advancement. Is really interesting to me, and thinking through if I am that person, and you kind of went into it, you said, ask yourself, where do you want to go? Having that goal, and then gathering feedback. So say I am 2 to 3 years out of college. I have big dreams. I know where I want to go, but I have no idea how to get there.
Yeah.
How am I going to start gathering feedback, and where do I start that journey?
Self-awareness humility is a huge part of being self-aware. So I think you start that journey by talking to people that you feel like, that you look at and go, I'd like to be like that one day. Start asking them for coffee, start asking them for lunch, or asking them for a one-on-one or a meeting, and just ask them questions in humility and go, man, how did you get to where you are today? Tell me about the struggles. Tell me about, if you had to do over again, what would you do differently? If you were me, what would you do that maybe like that you did and it got you to this point, or that you wish you had done and that you learned from? So I would start there with humility. Self-awareness is often really follows this being able to be humble and ask other people for how to get better or how to get to where that maybe you want to go.
Yeah, and that's good. Using the resources around you and asking and learning from people is so important. When I think about self-awareness, just kind of going off for a minute, I think for me, still staying in that kind of mindset of first couple of years removed from college, sometimes I think it's being self-aware enough to realize that what you graduated with and maybe the idea of yourself you had in your head and the person you are now are two different people. I had a very clear picture of where I wanted to be when I graduated college. I knew the company I wanted to work for. I knew where I was going to live. None of that looks the same now, totally different roles and opportunities. And if I compare the two in my mind, what I'm doing now is where I should have ended up. And it took self-awareness to let go of that picture of the idealized version of myself and say, I need to take opportunities where I am. And I think that's where sometimes you can self-sabotage and say, here's where I am now, but I'm just doing it until I can get to where I really want to go. And you talked about earlier, like taking advantage of opportunities and getting feedback. If I hadn't have changed my mindset and stopped viewing life as where I am for now until I can be where I want to be, and saying, I'm going to be working on now towards, and like you said, to be ready for what's next, so that when what's next comes, whatever it may be, I'm ready. I think that was a really powerful mindset shift for me. And I think when I think of self-awareness, I think of that time in my life a lot.
Perfect. Like that is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. And I'll echo that with, I was like you when I came out of college just a couple of years ago.
Right.
When I came out of college a very long time ago, every friend that I had gotten a job that in society was better than my job. And I'm sitting here waking up at 3:30 a.m., going in, unloading a truck at a fast food restaurant, hand breading chicken every day, staying until 4, 5, 6 p.m. at night, being exhausted, going home, and wearing a team member uniform, and then doing it all over again, having your friends come in that you graduated with and their parents and all that, and them looking at you going, what are you doing with your life? And you're like, trust me, I've got a plan, but I've got to get through this. I've got to use this to grow me to be able to reach that level that I want to be. And having that self-awareness, like you said, that, hey, going through this and being really engaged in it is what prepares you for the role that you want to have in the future, or that you hope to have in the future. And even if today doesn't look exactly the way you painted it in your head, it doesn't mean it's bad or it's wrong. It just means you've got to have the self-awareness to go, this is part of the path, and I'm willing to pay the price so that I can get to that part of the path that I have a vision for my future. And that to me is self-awareness in a nutshell.
That's great. And I think the last thing I want to say about self-awareness is really that for a long time I confused self-awareness with being self-effacing. I'm very self-aware all the time in different ways, right? So you hear like you're your own worst critic. And so being self-aware doesn't mean you have to always be finding the negatives on yourself and just constantly like having that kind of mindset. I think that's the total wrong way to go around it. Self-awareness is finding opportunities where you're at, being honest with yourself, accepting feedback, being open to opportunities, exactly what we've been saying, but never confuse self-awareness with self-effacing and that kind of attitude as well.
Absolutely. The story you tell yourself is the most important story you can tell.
Absolutely.
So you listen to you more than anybody else. So great point to end there on.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share?
No, just work on that self-awareness piece. I can tell all of our listeners, if you will do this, if you'll work on being self-aware, it'll put you ahead of so many other people in the workplace and in the world in general. So get it. Well, we are going to be self-aware and realize it's time to wrap up for the day. Time to go.
We have said our piece. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. Just do a little bit different of kind of a topic today as we talk about self-awareness. But often what we do is we take letters from listeners just like you, and we just share our advice on them. So you can always write us in at advice@launchpointleader.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great day.